there's so much involved with getting a building built and bringing it to reality. And when you're bringing a baby to the world and then raising the baby, the part of not just the pregnancy part, but then when it actually arrives, that journey of motherhood, parenthood in general, to raise kids, good people in society,
Yeah.
it takes a village.
Come on in.
This is Jack Baldwin with By Designs, our podcast about architecture, creativity, and entrepreneurship. Also, we just get to talk to fun and interesting people all the time. Today, I've got a one-on-one interview with a woman who I admire that I recently connected with. Her name is Gloria Kloter. How are you, Gloria?
I'm good. How are you, Jack? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I realized I should have probably practiced your last name before we got on the podcast.
Oh, no, you did great. I think you pronounce it better than myself.
Oh, really? Good. That makes me feel great about my pronunciation skills.
Yeah.
So Gloria, thanks for joining us today. Gloria is, we're going to give her a proper introduction here in just a second, but she's the author of a book I just finished reading called The Motherhood of Architecture. Gloria, thanks for joining us. Where are you coming in from today?
Right. So, as you said, I'm Gloria Kloter. I am an architect based in Tampa, Florida right now.
Right.
I am the founder and owner of Glow Architects, and but I am originally from the Dominican Republic. That's where I was born and raised, where I studied, did my bachelor's in architecture and master's degree too. And I came to the States in 2015, actually. So I've been here for a couple of years now, and I live now in Tampa, Florida. So that's where I am.
Awesome. And your architecture firm is Glow Architects?
Glow Architects, like glowing, like the word glowing. It has a
Yeah.
funny story behind. So because when we decided we were gonna go with it and start a company, and I was ready to have my business here in the States, I had a hard time choosing a name
Yeah,
because
that's the hard part of it.
it's really hard. And sometimes, like, you can just go to pick some cool names or just go with something with your name. And I felt like I was just so confused, but I had a couple of things that helped me go with it. One was that I was doing a devotional one day in the morning, reading the Bible, and there was a verse in the Bible that talks about, being the light of the room. And I felt like it really spoke to me because one of the things that I've been wanting to do is not just designing and doing the work. And, I really wanted my clients and the people around me to feel enlightened, like in the process of when you're like designing for them, especially because we do commercial,
Yeah.
but we do a lot of residential too. And the projects that we take on residential are, like, it's just such a personal type of project, especially if you're really working with the end client, which not all my clients are the end clients. But even if you're just an investor and you're doing this because you're going to resell the property or whatever, like, it can be very confusing. So I felt that the part of enlightening people in the process of design was important to me. But then, when I was in college, people used to call me Glow.
That was your nickname. I remember that from your book.
Yeah. So we hired a company to help us pick a name because I couldn't make up my mind. And
Yeah.
everybody was so focused with Kloter, and it just didn't ring to me. Like, it just didn't click. And someone said, well, what about with Gloria, like Glow? And I was like, oh, that was actually my nickname.
Yeah.
And with search that the website was not taking Glow Architects, and we were like, oh, it
Well,
just
it's a
sounds,
no-brainer at that point.
yeah, it was perfect. And I love the logo. It has a little glowing O.
I love it too.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so you combined your personality with some inspiration. So like what your purpose is, being a light in
being
the
alive.
business world. I love that. That's so neat.
Yeah, yeah. I think it makes people appreciate it, even myself, but it makes people appreciate more the name because sometimes people think of like, oh, that's kind of your glow, for an architecture firm. But when you really understand the meaning behind it, it kind of
Yeah.
changes a little bit the perspective of it.
Well, so I'm really excited because we have two really cool things to talk about with you. One is architecture, which is obviously one of our favorite topics on our show because we also run an architectural firm called Raynard Architectural Design. So it's always fun to have architects on here, and I'm dying to know about some of your work and where you get some inspiration and some of your favorite projects. But you also wrote a book, which running. So I don't know how you did this because you published the book rather recently, but with a 2-year-old while starting a new business in the middle of a very disruptive time. And then I also understand you have another baby coming in December. So a
Yeah.
lot going on, and yet you still found time to write a book. So let's talk about the book first, because I think that was a really interesting introduction into how we got to meet. Tell me, the book's called Architecture of Motherhood.
The
So,
yeah, the Architecture of Motherhood.
oh,
Yes.
she's got a copy. Let's see it. Let's see
I
that
do
cover.
have a copy here. Like,
Oh, I thought you were reaching. Oh, there it is. Okay, great. So we're going to drop some links too in the podcast so people can find it. It's on Amazon. I read it on my Kindle, which is one of my favorite ways to read books. But yeah, what I wanted to ask you first is just what connection do you see between architecture and motherhood? Do you see a connection between those two
oh my God.
words?
Yes.
Well, tell me about it. Yeah.
Yes. We can end up the podcast right here.
Yeah, let's go.
What I said about is about this. There's such a strong connection. And it's funny because I personally was so afraid of motherhood before I actually became a mother. And I realized through my own experience how connected the two things are. Like we are as mothers, we are vessels from God, and we are creating life through our bodies, and it's just like such a miracle. And when you are an architect, you are creating things from nothing. Like you get inspiration from things around you that kind of influence your decisions as an architect, yes. But you are creating most of the time things from nothing. And to me, you make an impact on society with what you do, either positive or negative. And the
Yeah.
way we, as parents, and I know that my book is pretty oriented for mothers because it really spoke high to me what I went through before I got to this point, and I really wanted to share that story to kind of encourage others to kind of
Yeah.
go for it and know that they can do it too. That there's no reason to feel that this motherhood will stop your career or like make you less best of or better of an architect.
And
Um,
that's really something that a lot of, I can imagine, there's a stigma about motherhood that you have to drop everything. Once you have a baby, career stops, the
mhm,
fun stops, a lot of things stop. And so
mhm,
probably I can imagine if people feel pressured to fit into that traditional role of being a
mhm.
stay-at-home mom, and whatever role it is, people might feel pressured
Yeah.
to do something, and they feel like they have to lose their career. Now, everybody's got to make their choices that are best for them, but you wanted to find a way to keep pursuing your career and pursue motherhood, but not let either one of those things suffer. Is that
Mhm.
right?
Like I really wanted to find a balance. And the thing is, there's a lot of, as you said, a lot of a stigma about motherhood and having a career just in general. It doesn't need to be necessarily with architecture as a career, like just career in general. But I will tell you one thing. A lot of people might think because maybe around them the situation is not as pushy, maybe people around them are very supportive on their decision of staying in their professional life. But there is data to back up these figures that I was feeling, and that a lot of women around me feel that haven't started motherhood. I did a little kind of like a quest like online one time, and I said like, what is the thing that you feel has affected you the most in your career, to kind of like what is it that you feel that really uh, was a big factor that influenced you maybe being delayed on some of your professional goals, or kind of being where you wanted to be, as in your career as an architect. And people didn't reply saying it was motherhood with those exact words, but
Right.
in general, motherhood played a huge part in that process, because motherhood comes with a lot of challenges. It's a really high pressure job, and a lot of them had to slow down or start for a while their careers and then come back. Some didn't come back, some came back after years, and then they were already kind of feeling behind on where the industry was. They wouldn't get a good job because they've been out for 3 4 years, and they didn't, again, nobody said it was motherhood, because there's more things around, there's other things that goes with it. But the one common denominator between all the answers, because most of the time people will give me a couple of reasons, that's what I'm trying to say. It's not that in the case of one person they will say this was only the one reason. No, there was many reasons, but the one denominator that was common in most of those answers was their role as caregivers, you know.
Right.
Um, so that was on a personal little study I did, but then I did talk about it in my book. Like when you look at the data and you see how much we have progressed on education, where the 50% of students, based on the reports from NAP, are right now that we're 50-50% on women and men, which is great because that was not the case. Just recently, we did a Women Architecture Committee event where we were displaying um, some documentaries about women architects, and one of them was about this 100. It's called a girl is a fellow here, 100 women under the Front Lloyd Wright's office. And it was a documentary made by Beverly Willis Foundation. They're based in New York. Anyhow,
Yeah.
you can see in that story some of these women that were like, there's a lot of firsts, the
Hmm.
first architect in this one state, the first architect in the United States in general, and things like that. And you kind of realize how hard and different it was. Like women talk about they were drafting at the same time they were cooking for the men in the office and things like that. And you're like, oh my gosh, things are so different now, right? But it took a long way to get where we are starting to be looked with equality, on the meaning of like, if you're doing the job and I'm doing the job, then we can talk like two professionals and not think about gender. Like that's kind of like where we all want to be in that matter, professionally at least. And so I feel that that was something that has been history wise, but there was so little women in school. That's what I'm trying to get to, because the whole thing of women getting into this industry that is really, we all know it is men dominated still. Um, it was just like a slow process, but we are at the point where 50-50 is men and women in school, which is great. Like girls are going to school for architecture. But then you see this data of how many women are actually architects, registered architects, and in kind of like principal level positions in some of these bigger companies. And it's a very low, kind of discouraging number. Like, at least for the architects, registered architects in the States, based on the numbers from NCARB, we are now at, I think, 23-24%, and we were for years about 17%, and before that it was way lower, like 11%, and before that was like, I don't remember, like maybe 5% or something. It's like, but my point is, even if we're at the best now of being, that 23-24%, you kind of wonder like, okay, how come we are 50-50 in school, but then we're still kind of like this,
Yeah.
third.
Why is there a gap between the professional world and attendance? Do you think motherhood is connected to that? That
I
it's
do think so, because I feel that's what most of people, women, experience. Like you get out of school, you start your career, and then at some point, you meet the man of your dreams and you get married. And
Like you have to, you have to give that up. So
yeah, and a lot of women have expressed to me how they lived it. They lived that reality where they had to pause
yeah,
because it was alone, and they didn't feel the support. They didn't know any other option. They decided that the best for them and their family at that point was pausing the career and coming back later. And some, again, I have a lot of friends that went to school with me that just never came back, had two
yeah,
three kids and just stayed as stay-home moms, and that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Is that's what makes you happy and that's what you want. We need more of that, actually. Like, society needs moms, and I love and respect any woman who decides, this is what really makes me happy, and I love my career, but I just love being a stay-home mom even more. That total respect. If there's a lot of work involved with that,
yeah. It's
um,
everybody. I mean, everybody's going to make their choices for different reasons, and it's going to come with different sacrifices. There's a sacrifice to stay at home, and there's a sacrifice to balance a work and motherhood. A career and motherhood. Those are sacrifices, and everybody's got to make the choices that are best for them. But you decided that there was a strong pull for you to pursue an active role in motherhood and still play an active role in growing a business, an architecture studio that you started on your own. Now that experience, I've got more. I've had more of. I've done the starting a business thing. I haven't done the motherhood.
the struggles.
Right. But what I enjoy about starting a new business is something you said a moment ago, which was creating something out of nothing. That's what is exciting about motherhood, is that a life, it just actually comes. It begins with you
Yeah.
and between two people, and then architecture is very much the same way. It begins with an idea, it begins with a dream and a vision, and then you go through the process of putting it on paper, articulating it, designing it, and then when it's actually a building, it's so satisfying. And so
And I,
um,
I want to add to that too. Before we kind of maybe change the subject, I just don't want to miss this part, that creating something from nothing is one thing in both my architecture and motherhood. But the fact of realizing and the similarities that we do create something from nothing, but we never do it alone.
right,
This is a collaborative effort in both scenes, in motherhood, parenthood in general, in architecture. Like, we start designing this idea, but then we have to rely on our reps, our experts, our engineers, our GCs, the relationship with the clients, how funding with the banks work, and
unity.
materials and systems. And there's so much involved with getting a building built and bringing it to reality. And when you're bringing a baby to the world, and then raising the baby, the part of not just the pregnancy part, but then when it actually arrives, that journey of motherhood, parenthood in general, to raise these kids and make them into good people in society.
Yeah,
It takes a village, and it takes a village for both. And I think that's the main scene, to me, the second big theme of how I feel that both scenes relate so much. And I feel like people don't realize that you need people around you. You need a support system for both, for your career and for motherhood too.
exactly. It's always community, and architecture is building community. Building family is building community. Building a business is building community. One of the things I did pay a lot of attention to was that section on what you learned as starting your business, and continuing to understand your why, continuing to understand your value, what you're contributing. When you say value, you're talking about what you bring to community. That's where value comes from. Your network, building good, authentic, deep relationships with people. Yeah, I think there's so many ties between the experience of parenthood, launching a business, of creating it from an architectural perspective.
Mhm.
And it's what gives us joy. It's what gives us, that's what we're plumbing the depths of, is learning about community and learning how we connect through our differences.
Yeah.
Even you're living on an island and in
Yeah.
Dominican Republic, and then you,
Yeah. And as Christians, like you kind of learn about that too, if you think about it, because we are called to be, part of the body of Christ, and we kind of need each other. And I think that's kind of the beauty of some of the things that, especially as I was writing the book, it made me realize how God just designs things perfectly. Because
yeah,
as you're talking about, building a business is about community, and parenthood is about community, and architecture is about community. But I feel like all that concept comes even from the Bible,
right,
and understanding how we all have different talents, we all have different skills, and the fact that we are not maybe necessarily the best at something doesn't mean we cannot be the best at something else. And
right,
it is absolutely important that we are our best at this, even if we're not the best at that, because we can always find people who are best at that can help us while we are the best at these,
yes,
and give our best to whatever it is in in our community, society, our careers, our parenthood, motherhood journey.
yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of just my vision. I just everything kind of interconnects in my head.
Absolutely. I totally get that because, yeah, as I was reading your book, there's so many lessons. You do a great job of putting some really practical takeaways at the end of each chapter. And I really feel like you know your audience, who um, I may not be the direct audience because I do feel like you're really speaking to mothers personally and also career people. So a lot of those questions are really pointed towards that experience, which is great. But I love how you are finding those connections through your story, and I think other people will see themselves in that story because we all struggle. You just took the time to write down about that struggle so that you could help somebody else, and I think that's awesome. Speaking of contributing to community, I feel like that's what's so awesome about architecture. I feel like we get to play a role in some way. Like you said, it's a team sport. We find people who have strengths that we don't have, and that's actually a beautiful part of life is when we're partnering with people. But you get to play a role as an architect, and it's a really exciting one because you get to participate in design. So do you have any favorite projects you've worked on that you can talk about, or any favorite design styles, or yeah, what's it like being an architect?
Yeah. I have a couple. I think one of the ones that I've always talked about, it was one of my first ones actually that were in the commercial side. When I started my company back in the Dominican Republic, because I did have my business back there when I was still single. Not too long after I finished school, and like the masters and all that, and I got licensed
Was it the
back there.
Steve Madden project?
It was the Steve Madden project, and the reason why it was because of how it happened. I had really great projects after that that were maybe bigger and square footage and importance in a way, but in my heart that was just such it just made such a huge impact in me and my career because I was just kind of starting the business, and I was approached to only do the renders of it and build it. That's how it all started. They had an architect that designed the Steve Madden store for them from a different country. I don't remember. I think the architect was maybe from Venezuela. I'm not quite sure, but he was from a different country and he did the design for it. And they just hired me to do renders and
Yeah,
build it, because in the DR you can do there's certain depending on the size, or since you can act as a general contractor,
right.
which you really don't do here in the States. But it was exciting for me because I love being on site and I love getting my hands on construction, which I don't get much lately because I live in the States now.
Right.
But I was excited for it. And then what happened was I did the renders based on the design. And they saw it and they were like, oh my gosh, like this is not this is not what we were envisioning. Like this is how it's going to look like. And I'm like, yeah, these are the materials, these are the colors, everything that's
We're
specified.
not happy with the renderings. We weren't happy with how it was going to look.
They were not happy with how it was going to look like based on the design that was delivered to them. And I think this is a part of how Glow, and again how everything connects to me. I always integrate renders now on my design process, because that experience made me realize, like, these people were about 2 weeks needing to start on construction, or
Yeah.
they were going to get penalized by the because it was like a new mall, so they needed to be ready by a certain time, and every day they were not ready after that deadline, they were going to be penalized per day. So it was important to be on time for construction. But then they realized they had a design that they were not understanding, because they were seeing everything black and white, and to them it was fine, and somehow they see the renders and everything as a like the real big picture of, like, as realistic as it could be in plans, and they're like, this is not what we were thinking, like we don't like it. So they said, how much will you charge to give us a new design? And
Yeah.
we're like, we're 2 weeks out to start construction. How
Right.
are we gonna do this? But I needed the money, and I thought it as an opportunity, because then I could call the design mine. It was the first Steve Madden in the country, and it was a big deal, and it was a big mall. So it wasn't just like, oh, someone built it, but the design belongs to this person. Now it was gonna be my design and my construction. So I said yes, and I didn't sleep for 2 weeks, obviously. But
You
I
hit,
was lucky
you hit
enough.
the 2 week deadline.
Yeah, I meet the deadline, and what we did, we negotiate with the people who needed to approve the tenant improvement design, because there was a full board to be able to do that before anything. And we were able to start construction while doing part of the permits and all that kind of stuff. But my main thing was, when I presented the design, they loved it. And I think the reason why was because I don't think I'm the greatest designer. I think I still have a lot to learn, and I'm in the process of, like, every day, like, just learning something new. But
Right.
I feel like what made the difference is that I had a meeting with them, and I listened. And I just
Yeah.
asked a lot of questions, trying to understand, okay, you don't like this? What do you want? Like, what is it that you envision? What is important to you? What do you want this brand to represent?
Yeah.
Who are your targeted clientele? Like, who is going to be the people that you think are going to be buying your products? I need to understand that so I can design for you. So one was that part, but then creating those renders right away for them to see, this is how it's going to look like. Are you happy with it? It just enlightened the process for them.
Right.
It was like a big wow moment of, like, oh yes, this is exactly what we want. So it was a big win for me, and I keep coming back to that project again, because it was one of the first ones. The way it happened, the speed of it, it was kind of like just crazy. But we got it done. It was built on time. They never got penalized or anything.
Oh, wow.
Then I got reached out to a local magazine that is huge. It's one of the biggest architectural journals in the Dominican Republic, called Architecto. And they reach out and say, we want to do an feature your project. I never reached out to them. I didn't even know that was an option, or how does those things work at all. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And they did a great review about it. They took photos of it. And it was just such a big deal for me. I
Yeah.
mean, it was just like, for someone who was just starting her career, it just exploded my business back in the DR. After that, I got a lot of retail stores. I
Oh,
became a little expert on retail stores because of that back in the DR. And I got a lot of other projects through it too. So I feel that that's one of my favorites. Just, again, the story behind it, how it
oh
happened.
yeah. Well, I love that you took an approach that I think obviously works, and we take that approach too. Just seek first to understand. If you actually sit down and ask these questions, and the better you understand the goals and what people are trying to accomplish, that's what informs design. If you know what outcomes they're trying to produce, then you can make suggestions, then you can push back, then you can be creative within those parameters. But you're never going to know until you ask the questions. And I think too many designers go in and they assume.
Yeah, and one thing that I've noticed too is like there's a lot of architects and interior designers too, because I do have my master's is in architecture with an emphasis in interior design, and I love getting involved with interiors too. But a lot of people have just like this style that like you will see what they design and you are like, oh, this was designed by Jack, like like it's oh, this was designed by Gloria. But when you go to my website, and I need to update a lot of our latest work on my website, but you see everything is so different. It's so
Right.
different from each other. And you will say like, my gosh, Gloria, you're like all over the place. Like what is your style? And I'm like, well, you might find out my style if we go to my house because
Right.
that's what I like. But
Right.
my clients
You
have
design.
their own style. I'm
Exactly.
designing for them. It's
Yes,
what's important to them, their
absolutely.
living style, like their budget, their the activities they do, and what they're expecting to do. Either it's commercial or residential, it doesn't matter. And I just think that's kind of funny because I'm like, it's kind of hard for me to keep on one style because I don't feel with the right to impose what I like above what my client actually likes,
Sure. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. That's the same approach we took when we started Raynard Architectural Designs. And I tell people this all the time. I'm like, you're not going to see a consistent theme between the homes that we've designed because the only theme you'll see is that these are the client's ideas. These are the result of collaboration between people who have dreams and aspirations and need guidance and need input and need somebody who can execute to make those dreams happen. And that's what is so fun about participating in the architectural design process is it's that moment when you really hit it. You get that connection, not just that you did something, but you connect with that client.
And there's some people might think I will let me point this out. Some people might think that it's usually better when you just become an expert on something, and that's a good approach on things. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But I feel I am the type of person that I get bored if I'm always doing the same. I need to challenge myself, and I need to put myself on situations where it forces me to learn something new.
Yeah.
And I think if I stay only taking clients that always like the same scene, I can get way too comfortable in that little corner doing the same type of design and same type of projects and same type of style. And I might become an expert. People at some point might recognize me as Gloria, the expert on so and so, and if you want that, you go to Gloria because she's the one who knows. But I just feel like it's just not how I am.
Right.
I like learning new things and challenge myself. And I feel like, again, as I said before, I'm always in the process of evolving and learning. So I think it's great. I think it's great, like being having a variety of things in your arsenal of in your portfolio. So
Well, if you're always looking for how you can contribute to your community, then you're always going to be looking for creative ways to do that. And you'll use an open-minded approach to find new opportunities and ways that you can serve people and help them grow. Writing a book is about that. Bringing new lives into the world is about that. Creating new designs and new buildings, everything that we get to do, that's where the joy comes from, I think, is connecting with purpose, not just connecting with ego or connecting with, notoriety. You're connecting with purpose, and really purpose is always bigger than ourselves. I believe. I think it's a calling, and it's something that you recognize it, and maybe it's not obvious all at once, but we get connected to purpose through things that are bigger than us, and that's actually really fun. I love that we get to do that as business people, as creative people, as just human beings who get to participate.
Too. We're so lucky, so blessed to be in this career. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Gloria, thank you so much for sharing so much of your story. I feel like we only scratched the surface because there's so many good stories in your book about your faith journey, how you became the struggles with becoming a mother, the fear that you encountered as a mother, and yet places that you saw comfort and through God's providence and through people around you. The lessons that you learned are awesome. I think a lot of people, even people who are not mothers, could benefit from reading that book. So tell us how you'd like people who got to hear this podcast today or watched us on YouTube, what would you like them to know in terms of how they can connect with you and stay in touch with you?
So everywhere. I'm
Everywhere.
very approachable, and I want to point out that one of the things that most of the people know me for is because I coach for free of charge, foreign architects and foreign emerging professionals that comes to the United States trying to get licensed in the field of architecture.
Interna-
Um,
International architects who are in the United States looking for a career path to become an architect.
Becoming an architect here.
Awesome.
I started a group, a community on Facebook called Foreign Architects. That it's about like 2,000 people now inside. A lot of people from all over the world that are either already here or in the process of coming to the States to and trying to get their license, and they don't understand. And in my book, I touch base a little bit on those struggles that I face as an immigrant architect, and understanding, I had a business back in the DR, and I thought I could just start my business here. And guess what?
Yeah.
License process is so different. It took me years to go through all the exams and understanding the paperwork. So
You've-
my point with these is I'm very approachable, because it's super important to me helping others that are going through what I went through. So please reach out to me if you have any questions about either that topic on how to get your license in the States or whatever. I am currently the architect licensing advisor for NCARB through AIA Florida. And so for the state of Florida, I'm that advisor that if you need any questions about Florida, reach out to me too. And then I have the book, and I have a lot of people reaching out about motherhood and thinking, I've been thinking about starting a business, and I've been thinking about starting a motherhood, and I'm like, how is that going to affect my career? So my point is, I get messages like when I don't check my phone for a full day. I don't check my phone for a full day for whatever reason, and I go to either Instagram or Facebook, and I literally can have sometimes like steady messages,
Yeah.
like just like it's my normal scene, and I'm fine with it. I love it. I love helping people. So ways to find me is just my name. I made sure that all my handles are the same
Oh,
everywhere.
good.
So you can find me on Instagram as Gloria Kloter. You can find me on Twitter as Gloria Kloter. You can find me on Facebook as Gloria Kloter. I'm even in what's this new one I just joined? Getter. I joined at Getter as Gloria Kloter. So I am trying as much as possible to be available, and people will send me private messages, and I get to coach people like one-on-ones. If I just try to schedule things like to have calls with them whenever they need help. But it's part of what I do. I do dedicate some hours a week for that.
Yeah.
So please don't ever think that you're gonna bother me, because I know I'm busy. We're all busy, but this is important to me. It's
Yeah.
important for me to help others that are going through this process. So just don't hesitate to reach out.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate that you make yourself so available, and I'm sure there's a lot of people coming to the United States who would love to work here, who just need somebody to show them the right next step.
You
And
will be surprised how
yeah,
many. It's just crazy.
well, I hope we can partner with some of those architects and
Yeah, yeah.
some people who are looking for work in the Atlanta, Georgia area that would love to partner with Raynard Architects.
Georgia was the first state I was able to get a license
Oh, good.
because Florida wouldn't accept the foreign architect path that NCAR offers as first license. So I had to get it in Georgia
Oh,
and
okay.
then transfer as a reciprocity to Florida. Just one of those little things I learned in my process.
Yeah.
of
Another
setting
little
up to-
curveball. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Gloria, thank you again for participating in the By Design podcast. It was really fun talking to you. I think we need to get another show
I
scheduled.
know. It's like we need like a 2 hour show to just go over everything.
I feel like there's so much more to talk about, but I'm going to drop all of the links to your book and to Glow Architects and to your social media and to our show notes so people can stay in touch with you. But yeah, Gloria, thank you so much. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this and the opportunity of talking with your public and your audience. So, and I love what you're doing too. So, I'm just such an honor to be here. Thank you
It
so
was
much.
fun. It was really fun. Thank you.
Thank you.